Science Podcast. My name is Tyler Bublitz, and we did it. We have accomplished goal 1 of the Faith and Science Podcast. We have made it through the Revised Common Lectionary through year A, B, and C. One trip around. And that's what this is for. This is the birthday here as I'm recording this at the end of the 30th of December 2020. We have accomplished the first goal of the podcast. And so I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to get behind the mic and just say a few things, give you a little bit of leeway on what's kind of coming, and to give a lot of thanks. This podcast would not be possible without people like you listening on the other end. And I know some people write to me and some people don't, but I do hear through the grapevine, through people talking to people or running into me and talking to me, that you are listening, that you do appreciate it, or you occasionally send the one email saying, I really do appreciate this. And I am really thankful for that. It's one of those things that when I get those emails, it's just fuel for me to keep going. I remember when I started this podcast, there's so many different feelings that I have about it. I had people who thought I was crazy, who thought I was nuts, who didn't think that this was possible. And I'm really appreciative that we had enough of a group of people who thought, yeah, give it a shot and let's see what you can do. And I'm really thankful for that because I think we have started something. I think we are building this cool community, and I think it is part of, in a way, where I feel the church is going to be starting to move, is thinking about and really considering these specific things and being able to be a little bit more targeted, maybe not in a sense of necessarily bringing it up every week in a pastoral service, but maybe it's that there's at least communities being able to talk about this consistently and maybe even looking at it like what you would be hearing in the church on Sunday morning. And I think that's a cool little spot, little niche that we're in right now, and I'm really excited about it. I think one of the things that I also have to reflect and think about with this when we're at this 3-year mark is where I was at 3 years ago. And I have to thank all of you because where I was I had been fired from my job about a month and a half prior. I had this thought stirring in my head for about 6 months. And at that point, I didn't know what else I had to lose. And it helped me figure out who I was and where God was taking me. And especially at that point in my life, I didn't know where I was going. And in a lot of ways, it was a very frustrating time, a long process of being unemployed and trying to figure out where I was going and trying to find that next job. And the podcast was very helpful to know that it was the one thing I felt like I could contribute to society, along with having people supporting me and just giving me those words of encouragement to keep going, was something I really needed at that time. And I don't know if I've really ever fully explained and fully put out there how much that meant to me, how much that has continued to be a fuel to help provide this podcast week after week. And I think back to where I was at that point. I was unemployed. And since then, I'm now working as a youth minister in a church. I'm married. I'm living in a different state. There's been a lot of change in my life, and that moment of deciding on the 30th of December 2017 to send out this podcast, little did I know it was going to change a lot of where I was going, and I think for the better. It's been a great experiment, and an experiment that I'm going to continue, but a place where I could really explore faith and science at a deeper level, a place where I could really continue to learn, a place where I'm learning more and more about the lectionary, and it's been really fun to kind of see how that's put together and trying to, how do I take this pre-assigned readings where I can't choose and take this really focused viewpoint and try mixing that all together each week. It's really fun and creative, and it's been just a great endeavor for me. So I'm just very thankful. And that's, I think, the first part I really want to come across here in this 3-year anniversary podcast is giving thanks and just being for all the support, whether it was one email or multiple emails, one tweet or a comment or a conversation. I'm really thankful for that, and I really appreciate that. Going forward, there's a few things that you should know about, and if you're listening to this, you'll get some early access into it. First, you've probably noticed that the January 3rd podcast for 2021 came from a different email. That's the Faith and Science Podcast at gmail.com. And part of that was to start having a little bit more work-life balance. But part of that was also to have more Google Drive space to be able to put that up. And just to also start building this, there's ideas in my head that I have to hopefully build this out even further. And that was a step that we needed to take. And what is part of that then take is I'm hoping to have a little bit more regular time on when I'll be releasing these. I'm going to try, at least initially here, going back to how I used to do it so that they would come out 6 days before the preach date, if you want to put it that way, the Sunday that they're assigned for. So I'm trying to be 6 days ahead on that when they would be released. Also, with that being the case, I am also putting my foot down in that this is the year that I will try getting all these up onto major podcasting platforms is the goal that I have for myself. In that, there's a couple that I need to remix or re-edit, however you want to put it, some of the early on ones. And I want to make sure that it's a catalog that people could still go through and kind of go back and be able to listen to. So especially, hopefully, soon I'll start going back in the show notes and starting to attach back to when the initial podcast that I did on these are. So I kind of like Working Preacher, that if the podcast I put out this week doesn't speak to you, maybe the one 3 years ago will, if it's on the same text. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to do. But this is a little bit of a process and a few things that need to all come together. But I'm really excited about that. And I'm just really hoping in that time and in that space, you guys continue to provide the support that you already have been, because this is continuing to venture out into deeper waters for myself. And I'm a little nervous about it, to be honest. It also means there's a little bit of more work I need to do on the back end here to get things ready for that type of thing. But I really do feel like we're in a place now with this podcast as I have listened back to some of these old ones and look at where I was year 1 to where I am now at the end of year 3, the growth and the flow and how we've kind of established this thing as we are over 150 episodes deep. It's been really fun to kind of look back and hear that and hear the changes and hear, oh, this is when I started doing this. This is when I started doing that. And I'm really excited for, as we now are going back through some of these old readings, that you're able to do that too and go back and listen and hear the growth and also hear how we can continue to apply these in different and new ways each year. So I'm really excited about that. There's a lot of things here that I'm really excited about. A couple other things I'm going to hold a little closer to the vest. They're not quite as baked and not quite as solidified as those few things are at this point. So 2021, we are looking at taking some major steps forward with this podcast, and I'm really excited about it. I'll let you guys know, hopefully even in the podcast, as we're getting closer to some of these things. I'll probably start announcing them a little bit, but I figure I'll give you guys a little peek behind the curtain since it is the birthday of the podcast. And just thank you again for all the support. This wouldn't be possible without you listening on the other end. It's what continues to be the fuel and the drive to get these done. And trust me, there's a lot of times where it's hard. It's a discipline. And there's definitely weeks that it's much harder to do it than other weeks. But I'm really appreciative for the people that we have here listening and providing support and the community that we're building. And I'm really excited to see where this community continues to grow and expand as we move forward. So I'm just excited, and I can't think of any better way than, we'll wrap this up as we always do. I pray God blesses you through your faith and amazes you through science. And I'm excited for 2021, and I hope you are too. And let's continue to see where we grow from here.